Hello everyone. In this presentation, I'm going to be providing some historical context for the 19th century, or what's otherwise known as the Victorian period, which is a time period that is known for its social restraints and for its subversion of those restraints. A perfect text to illustrate the conflicts within the Victorian society is Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. So, let's get started. Some scholars often start the Victorian period on or around 1830, while others start the period with the ascension of Queen Victoria to the English throne in 1837. Queen Victoria was the longest reigning British monarch, around 63 years, until Queen Elizabeth II beat her record in 2015. During her reign, Queen Victoria oversaw the rise of the English Empire. In fact, there was a saying during her time that the sun never set on the English Empire. This image reflected on the fact that England had colonies all over the world, and so the sun literally never set on the English Empire. Queen Victoria's behaviors and restraints served as models for English society. Indeed, it was during her reign that much of our traditions and customs, like brides wearing white for weddings and mourning a beloved's death for a year before seeking another relationship, started. After the death of her husband, Prince Albert, Queen Victoria never wore anything but black for the rest of her life. England itself underwent a massive transformation because of industrialization. Because England was the first country to become industrialized, its transformation was an especially painful one. It experienced a host of social and economic problems consequent to rapid and unregulated industrialization. Although many Victorians shared a sense of satisfaction in the industrial and political preeminence of England during the period, they also suffered from an ancient sense of something lost, a sense too of being displaced persons in a world made alien by technological changes that had been exploited too quickly for the adaptive powers of the human psyche. For the representative of the Victorian era, I have chosen Oscar Wilde, who lived between 1854 and 1900. Wilde was born and grew up in Dublin. He studied classics at Trinity College, then attended Oxford. He was friends with other well-known writers of the time period like George Bernard Shaw and W.B. Yeats. The latter once described Wilde as an excellent conversationalist, stating, "I never before heard a man talk with perfect sentences, as if he had written them all overnight with labor and yet all spontaneous." In 1895, Wilde was convicted of sodomy, a term used when referring to homosexuals at the time, although the term more broadly referred to any sexual act deemed deviant. Wilde was sentenced to hard labor in prison for 2 years. His conviction was the result of a libel suit he had filed against a man who had claimed in print that Wilde was a sodomite. The man's claim came about when he had discovered of his son's relationship with Wilde. Unfortunately, for Wilde, the lawsuit uncovered his sexual liaisons with men, which was criminal in England at the time. Sadly, Wilde's career never recovered, and so he died in exile in Paris in 1900. Impoverished, abandoned by his former friends and lovers. Legend has it that Wilde's final words perfectly illustrated his characteristic wit even in death, where he is thought to have said, addressing the atrocious wallpaper in this room, "Either I or the wallpaper must go." Before discussing Wilde's only novel, I would like to address homosexuality during the Victorian era. Although same-sex attraction was recognized and known, sexuality was not thought of as a core component of a person's identity. That wasn't recognized until much later in the 20th century, although ideas regarding sexuality and its permanence were starting to be discussed in psychological and neurological circles, especially in the works of psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud. Once again, this is not to say that homosexuals did not exist, nor that they were becoming more popular. Members of what we call the LGBT community occupied about the same proportion of society through all of human history as they do today. I am only drawing your attention to how Victorians thought about sexuality. They assumed that sexuality was something that needed to be controlled. Even if a man did experience same-sex attraction, he was still expected to marry and have children, which is exactly what Wilde did, even though he also had a long string of male lovers. Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray follows the adventures of a man who stays forever young and beautiful after a friend paints his portrait. The painting, starts reflecting his body's decay through age and the damaging effects of a sensual lifestyle. As a result, the picture grows old and grotesque while Gray remains youthful. Wilde writes in a preface to the novel that the artist is the creator of beautiful things. To reveal art and conceal the artist is art's aim. He adds, all art is at once surface and symbol. Those who go beneath the surface do so at their peril. It is the spectator, and not life, that art really mirrors. The preface to The Picture of Dorian Gray was written after the initial publication of the novel. It's a response to the public's concerns regarding the novel's themes, in particular, its homoerotic context, or subtext. And so, the preface is Wilde's attempt to deflect charges of homoeroticism by suggesting that any deviant interpretation is a result of the reader's own character and not that of the writer's. In other words, if the reader sees homoeroticism in the novel, Wilde suggests that they are homosexual, and not him. The themes we'll discuss in connection with The Picture of Dorian Gray include the following: same-sex desire, the self-destructive horror of satisfying personal desires at the expense of others, and the novel's recreation of the Greek myth Narcissus. All of these themes are connected within the novel, but I would like to go ahead and stress now that the novel's criticism of Dorian Gray is not based on his sexuality, but instead on how he treats others. To provide some more context, I would like to summarize the Greek myth of Narcissus. According to the story, Narcissus was an exceptionally beautiful young man. Before, or soon after his birth, Narcissus's mother consulted a prophet who informed her that her son was destined to fall in love with his own image and die. Because of this, Narcissus's mother removed all reflective surfaces from their home, which meant that Narcissus grew up without ever having seen his own face. Unfortunately, one day Narcissus came upon a still river and saw his reflection for the first time. Having never seen his reflection before, Narcissus took the reflection for reality. That is, he thought the person he was looking at was real. He became so enamored with the image that he ended up wasting away, in love, by the riverside. As in the novel, Narcissus' story reflects both same-sex desire and the dangers of self-love. Thank you for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions.